Well, hi again, Natela.
Hi, Scott.
Yes. Okay, so full disclosure. This is my second time interviewing you. It's not really an interview, it's our second conversation
Right.
because out of all the podcasts we've ever done, yours is the one that didn't download. And I'm going to say it right now. You're the most important one, too. So
Oh, but in reality, we all know you just wanted to do it with me twice, right?
that's right. That's right. That's right. It really was so much fun the first time. But what's great is since we did that podcast, you brought me on to sell a property. And I was just so excited because I know you know so many amazing agents, people that I know and think the world of. And I
Right.
was just so happy that you did that. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. I really
And,
appreciate it.
and you were amazing. Thank you for doing everything. It was honestly the smoothest transaction that I have ever experienced in my personal life and
Hmm.
that I have seen in my career. And I deal with a lot
Wow.
of real estate brokers and a lot of real estate agents and clients. Just, I think that it's the prep, the clarity, the communication, the strategy. And I'm really not trying to flatter you. And I'm a very harsh judge of character.
Uh,
If you notice, like I wasn't saying anything at Provisors because I just was like, well, I'm gonna wait and see, right? I'm gonna wait and see
right.
until it closes. I'm gonna see how it goes,
Mhm.
and you did not disappoint. I was very, very impressed and grateful that you made it happen the way that you did.
Well, I appreciate it. What made you great to work with, if I can say something nice about you, and then of course if we can talk
Why
about
not?
what you do. No, what was great though is that you were always so transparent, open, direct, but not in an abrasive way, in a very nice way. And it was just so refreshing to be able to have conversations with you. Like when I wanted you to do the pre-inspections, it was like I could tell, that that was like, what? Why are we doing that? They're going to do their own inspections anyway, and why are we doing this and this? And I said, I totally get it. I totally get it. This is where I want to head off any issues. And it turns out there were, some termite issues.
Right.
And it turns out the sewer line was in good shape. But by doing the pre-inspections and the reports, all of a sudden they weren't asking for any of that. And I think it saved us so much money. So thank you for, trusting the process because I think that just made a huge difference.
It did. It totally did. And yeah, and like at first when you suggested it didn't quite make sense. And when you explained it, I was like, okay, it's a low cost. Even
Right.
if like it doesn't do anything for us, why not? If Scott thinks that it's best, let's just do it. And
Hmm.
then it actually ended up saving us for sure time, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt. And so, because whenever we hand that off, what's so much fun about it, Nutella, is when they call up and say, okay, they want this, 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 and then they want you to clear it of all section one. And I'm going like, do you not remember the report I sent you? And they're like, well, we're just thinking that's fair. I said, no, it's not fair. It's a renegotiation. This was factored into the price.
Right.
You knew it. I knew it. It's in writing. Stop asking about it. What's your next issue? And so by the end of it, what do? They ask for like 3 or 4 small things. And I was just really pleased. So
That's what makes you so special. I think that one of the big issues that I have seen with my clients when they deal with real estate issues is that the agents or the brokers that represent them, they don't anticipate.
hmm.
They're so fixated on making the sale happen because they want to
Right.
make their commission naturally that they don't slow themselves down enough to say, okay, well, how do we do it the right way? Rather than
Right.
doing it in haste, how do we do it right so it actually happens?
Right. And it's a pain in the ass to do it that way, to be honest,
Right.
because we're doing all sorts of stuff up front and all the disclosures up front, the certificate of compliance up front. But every time in my career in the past 20 years, something comes up and I'm going, how could we have avoided that? They said, like the 9A city report. So what do
Right.
you mean this is being held up? We can't close without that? I said, well,
Right.
let's order it right when we open escrow, or not when we open escrow, but right when we sign a listing agreement. And then my escrow officer said, no, I don't do that. I said, why? She goes, because what if it doesn't close? I said, I close like 95% of the time. I said, I
Right.
need you to do this. And she said no. So I said, okay, I'm going to use another escrow officer. And so,
And look, and we closed this transaction. I was out of the country,
yes, yeah,
right? And like no hiccups. It was great. So
yeah.
it was
And it's
fantastic.
great to have such a great team too, because I have to have someone like Marcine Klein. I thought she was fantastic as an
She
escrow
is
officer.
fantastic.
She
She's
gets it.
well,
She's so
I don't
smart.
know if you know what happened towards the end is that we couldn't get the proceeds from the sale because it turns out like the property was in the trust. We didn't have a bank account set up for the trust.
Hmm.
So I just called Marcine. I was like, hold my money.
Hmm.
And we actually just got it this week,
Oh,
which
how
was
funny. Yeah, yeah. I told her to put it in my account, but she wouldn't.
She refused.
Yes, she refused.
Thank God.
Hey, so listen, I want before we go on, because I know we're going to talk about some real estate hell, and because you're an amazing litigator when it comes to business, when it comes to real estate. I mean, when someone comes up and they say they have a challenge, I usually just send it over to you and say, hey, so can you handle this? Can David handle this? Can one of your team? Because I know it's going to be handled beautifully. And I will say also too that that your reputation just precedes you. You are just known for being like so smart, so on top of it, really, really focused and poised. So I just love the way you handled yourself, the way you handle yourself. I love the way that people speak of you because, man, when they speak about you, it's glowing. So
Thank you. I
that's why I'm so glad to have you here. But if you wouldn't mind, just take a little bit and just tell us what you do and what your real area of specialty and passion is.
Sure. So I'm a partner at Grunshennen. As a firm, we're a full service business law firm. That means that we can service practically any business legal needs outside of bankruptcy and really specialized employment issues. We handle everything from basic corporate transactional work to really complex mergers and acquisitions and real estate transactional deals to litigation, real estate disputes, construction disputes, partnership disputes, and things of that nature. And the bulk of our clients usually are individual entrepreneurs or small to mid-sized businesses. And I think that what makes us really stand out as a firm is that we end up being outside general counsel for a lot of people and a lot of businesses because they come and we get to know them, we get to know their business, we get to know their objective. And because we can help them with so many legal things related to their business, they just never have to go anywhere else. Right. And then the other benefit is that we have a really, really wide network of other professionals that we work with, whether it be like yourself in real estate or accountants or other legal professionals that are outside of our area of expertise. And so the client just feels like they're really well taken care of because we can help with whatever it might be, even if we don't know that area of law per se. We have people that we can reach out to that do. I personally specialize in corporate transactional work, namely real estate transactional work, acquisitions, dispositions, complicated transactions, and mergers and acquisitions. But my team does all kinds of corporate transactional work.
It was interesting when we were talking during our transaction together, that the confidence you had. I would say, well, what if this happens? She goes, oh, don't. You usually would say something like, oh, don't worry about it. What I'll do is I'll just wrap that up in paper and do this, this, and this. And you spoke all your lingo. And I went like, man, I wouldn't want to mess with you. I totally remind me
You're
never
the
to mess
second
with
person
you.
that said this to me today. And I was like, what? I'm the nicest.
No, I think you're very nice, but that's not to be to be misread. You're nice, but you're extremely you definitely know when to take off the gloves, and so yeah, I wouldn't. I look at you, and it's kind of like the other people I know from your firm. You're kind of let's keep our gloves on as long as we can, and let's figure this out. But if we can't, then we're going to swing for the fences. And so
yeah, because look, it's a not one size fits all. And again, that's what I think makes our approach so unique is that we're very efficient and we're effective.
Right.
I think that some people, client comes to them with an issue and they put their gloves on right away and they don't really think, 10 steps ahead. Is this efficient? Is this, what is my client's objective? Sometimes the objective isn't even financial.
Right.
I mean, most of the time it is, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is, there's a lot of emotion that goes into, conflict. And so I think that what makes us very unique is that we look at every issue very holistically.
I love it. I love it. So, so far it's just been like real estate heaven. So let's talk about some real estate hell. Some of the things that you might have gone through. And so why don't you take the floor?
Well, I personally have not gone through any real estate hell, thankfully. Actually, the first property that we ever sold was this property that we sold with you. And so far, so good. Amazing. I will never go anywhere else. But I have seen some clients go through some really, really wonky stuff. And I think, like I was telling you earlier, a lot of it is people rush and they don't think things through and they don't communicate properly with each other, and things slip through the cracks. Like I had this one client, it was a very big residential purchase. I think it was like 50 million or something like
Oh
that.
my goodness.
And half of it was going to be paid in cash, and half of it was going to be a seller carryback. And the seller agreed, and they entered into a purchase agreement. And all that the purchase agreement said in one of the addendums was like a short phrase basically saying, seller carryback in such and such amount. And so when time came to document the carryback, and I started documenting it, naturally I needed to understand, well, what are the terms? Like, is it being amortized? Is it interest only? Like, what's it going to be? And it ended up being that the buyer was fully convinced that it was going to be interest only with a balloon payment sometime thereafter. And the seller wanted it to be amortized over a period of time, and they just couldn't agree. And no one thought of it. No one thought to document it. Meanwhile, the buyer pulled a bunch of money out of other investments to make the down payment. $25,000, $25 million is not chump change.
Nope.
And the deal fell apart.
Unbelievable. How does it get that far? Because usually if there's a seller financing piece, you call with me, I'll understand the basic terms. And then as part of the contract, it will state it. It's someone who specializes in finance.
They had the term, they had the time in there.
Right.
They had the rate in there. What they didn't have in there is interest only or amortized, and it's a big difference on that much money. So obviously everyone was very disappointed. It just goes to show you how much you have to slow down and make sure that you really document things. And maybe they would have renegotiated something else, had they actually spoke about what it's going to be. Maybe he would have decided to go finance it through a bank, because he didn't even put a loan contingency on it because he didn't need one. Right.
Interesting. Right. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, yeah, you definitely have to slow down. That's those circumstances. I always bring in an attorney. Because especially if it was $1 million,
I was brought in too late.
Yeah, but I would have brought. I mean, we did a seller financing piece not long ago because it was a complicated property, and we thought, well, let's think outside the box to find a buyer, and found someone, and he was willing to pay full price on a property that no one else wanted, if he could do, and he would put down 30%, pay full price, but he wanted a 5-year loan and with no prepay, and so I said, okay, hold on. So let's bring in someone, and this is before I know you. So I brought in someone who specializes in financing and put it together, polish it up. Deal goes through. Everyone gets paid. She gets paid off early. It was such a great situation. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get creative, and that's another, I think, big plus for you and I, because I think we're very creative and we think outside the box, and we're not just like, okay, well, they can't come to terms, it's dead, right? I'm like you, I'm the same way. Like, my brain wheels are going to start turning. I'm going to be like, okay, well, how can we make them come together so that everything
exactly. Yeah, that's what I like to do too. Is that's one of the things I really enjoy doing. Plus, I love being part of a mastermind group and being part of our networking group, because if I'm stuck on something, I can give a great agent a call. And say, hey, what do you think about this? Because I can't stand for a deal not to come together if it's doable, or I can't stand a deal falling apart unless it really just needs to. Yeah. Well, that's another reason that you're a great agent. Not a great agent, but a great attorney.
Right. And then the other issue that I had recently was a client was buying a property with a broker. They did an inspection. The client found some water damage on the property and sent in a request for repairs. The other side said, okay, we'll repair, but you have to remove all contingencies before we repair. And in fact, this deal has been dragging on for so long. We want more of a deposit. I don't know what conversations transpired between the agent and the client, but she ended up sending in $430,000 additional. I think it was like a $3 million purchase, additional into escrow in good faith to show that she is very serious about buying the property. And then they did all the repairs. When they came to inspect the repairs, it appeared that the water damage wasn't repaired properly. And when they started looking further, they found a bunch of mold. It so happens that my client has a severe mold allergy, which her agent knew about. But there isn't much she can do now because she has removed all contingencies other than like repairing the water damage, which, they just have to patch it up.
It wouldn't
She
be
was like,
considered
well,
a
now
new
that
disclosure?
she was like, now that I found this mold,
Uh-huh.
I want to go deeper to see, is there more mold? Where did it go? Because I don't feel safe living in this house because, again, severe mold allergy. In fact, the same agent sold this client's house that she was living in due to like severe mold issues that they remediated. So she
Oh
was like
gosh,
really well aware how
that's
important
awful.
the issue was. And they wouldn't let her break through more to investigate if there's any more mold. And she was like, I can't buy this house. It's going to make me ill. And
Mm-hmm.
we have all this money stuck in escrow. And the deal fell apart. And for about 3 months, I was going back and forth and fighting with the other side to get her money back because theoretically, at least the good faith deposit, they didn't have to give it back to her because it was listed as a liquidated damage
Mm-hmm.
in the purchase agreement. But I ended up getting her all of her money back. But that again goes to show you how much agents have to think ahead,
Right.
right? Especially with a client that has health issues and is this sensitive and there's water damage. Naturally, there might be mold. But yeah, but it
Absolutely.
was hell for the client. She had almost over $500,000 stuck in escrow without knowing if she was ever going to get it back.
That's tough. But don't you, when they dug in and they found more, isn't that considered a new disclosure, which would open up the negotiation again, or?
Not according to her agent. Her agent wanted her to close it.
Okay. All right. Because in my opinion, and I'm not an attorney,
Right.
that yeah, if there's a new discovery, then it would open that up again, and the buyer would be within their right to ask for some type of remedy or to cancel and get her deposit back. That's what I would.
Well, that's how we ended up getting the deposit back,
Mm-hmm.
is we
Mm-hmm.
used a lot of these arguments.
Yeah.
But her agent totally just was on the side of the seller, and the seller wasn't budging, and we ended up canceling the deal, but the money got
Mm-hmm.
stuck. And so we were just about to go to mediation because that's what we had to do before initiating, any other proceeding. And I ended up negotiating it out and getting everything back for her to the penny.
Wonderful. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you were right.
Thank you. I think so too. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. But gosh, what are the chances that she would leave a house because of mold,
Right.
and then get into a house, remove all contingencies, and then find mold? I mean, it's just so unlikely.
I know. I always tell my kids when we talk about these like weird things, in law school, my very first class, I went abroad and I
Mm-hmm.
studied international arbitration. And my
Mm-hmm.
roommate that I met there got struck by lightning when
Uh-huh.
she was younger, not once, but twice.
Oh,
Right? So I always tell my kids, like, I've met someone like this, anything is possible.
that's right. That's right. No, I love that my kids are always asking me questions too. What's happening with that? What's happening with that? What are you doing there? And the thing is though, in our business, there's always so much to share, and they don't have the patience for that. They just want to know, so this happened and then this happened. Yes, but there's this happened, and we brought in this person. It's just very complicated.
Right.
Which is why I surround myself with people like you.
Well, thank you. My kids are even younger, way younger than yours, so they have
Mm-hmm.
way less patience.
Yeah.
But they speak all the legal lingo. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
talk to them, they will know. Sometimes they'll come home from school and be like, "Mom, this kid was mean to me. Can you get a restraining order?"
That's classic. That's classic. Yeah, it would be difficult with having you as a mom, because if you guys are disagreeing, man, you could just talk them up and down.
Oh, gosh, I say that they are the only two people in the world that I can't out negotiate.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Very good. I will say this too, because it just came to mind. Your husband was awesome to work with.
Thank you.
He, my God, I could not believe how he took the reins and made stuff happen. And if he disagreed, he'd tell me, we talk about it, and then ultimately you guys, of course, decide. But he was great to work with. When I walked into that house, I was going like, man, you guys did an amazing job. I was working on another deal where they used, they decided to do it themselves, and I walked in and I said, we can't shoot in 2 days. And they said, why? I said, it is a freaking mess. This has to be done. This has to be done. If you want top dollar, this stuff has to be done. Let's just hold off and do it right. And then we ended up, they listened, which is nice to someone you know, and then they got a premium for their property too, because everyone worked together. But walking into your house, I was going like, man, does he know his stuff?
Thank you. I like him too.
Yes, you do?
I do.
Yes, I would guess that he could give you a run for your money when it comes to a negotiation too.
He gave up negotiating with me a long time ago.
Oh, that's
No,
hysterical.
I'm just kidding. We happen to be on the same page on most of the stuff.
That's great. Well, he made a great partner because I dealt with him mostly when it came to prepping the house and just,
Right.
I know you were kept in because of how busy your schedule was. He nailed it. He just absolutely nailed it. He did some things that I was thinking like, oh, I don't know. And then I went over there and went like, okay, tell me who you used for that because I was gonna say no to that and you were right. So yeah, he was great.
Thank you. Thank you for saying.
Absolutely. So what else you got for me?
What else have I got for you?
I think the last time we talked, you said something about some deal or no deal or something something big had happened. But then again, you might have brought that up in reference to a situation.
Maybe. I think overarchingly, it really all comes down to communication and preparation.
100%.
Right? Both things that you excel at and a lot of people don't. And so I just see really unfortunate things, like bad advice. Oh, I have an interesting one for you. Crazy story. A lady was selling a house in Santa Monica. It was a very special property because it was like a really big lot that I guess is very difficult to come by in that particular area. The agent was representing her, the seller, and the buyer, and was also representing the buyer on the buyer selling their own home. Okay.
Wow.
So they're representing all these people, and they're in the midst of this deal. They're negotiating, and what we now know is that there was another interested buyer that was offering way more money, and the agent ended up delaying the agent was going to represent this other party as well, and they ended up delaying everything so much so as to not make the seller aware of the second buyer, so that they would enter into contract with the other buyer who were also selling their own home, and then they missed out on $600,000 over what they ended up getting. And so now we are working that one out. Because what ended up happening, nobody knew. This second buyer that was interested somehow found out the contact information for our client. The seller reached out to them and said to them, hey, did you know that you had this offer? Here's all of our correspondence with your agent. And our client had no idea. So then there's straight, basically fraud and misrepresentation that happens.
No, that's miserable. That's the kind of behavior that gives agents a bad reputation.
Yeah, crazy. Well, listen, he thought that they would have never found out. He was going to make a commission on 3 deals, right? Buy, sell, and then sell over there. So he didn't want to miss out on that, because if he brought in the other buyer, then he would lose the house on the other side. And he didn't want to do that, so he just decided not to act in good faith, which sucks, because now he's going to get sued, and now the brokerage knows about it, and it's just, it's a short-term gain for a very big long-term loss. So I think that, outside of being creative and prepared and, clear, I also think that, being a decent human being and being honest and trustworthy, I don't think that's talked about enough, but I think that's a big ticket item as well.
Well, what I always say too, because my dad was in real estate, and I remember with him that he'd always do the right thing. If it meant that he would lose out some money, he'd rather do the right thing. And so us as kids always saw a stand-up guy, a guy that we could respect and love. And that made such an impression. And which is one of the things with me is when I go to sleep at night, or let's say I'm tucking my kids in or we're snuggling or something, I want them to look in my eye and see a guy that, Dad's a real stand-up guy and willing to walk away from a deal. And to me, that if when you're willing to walk away from a deal, and you have that reputation, it leads to so much more business. It really actually will make you more money by being honest and ethical. That's where you're going to make more.
That is my motto as well. Totally is. It's the same thing with lawyers. We also unfortunately have a bad rep because everyone thinks that, I'd rather be as efficient as possible for you so that you come back to me, rather than bill and create work that doesn't need to be there so that I can gain something from you right now. That's not
absolutely. That's not and by the way, are you billing me right now? I just need to know if I'm on the clock or
no. This is on the house.
Okay. Woo, pro bono, baby. Okay. Okay. And you know what? I think with the new NAR settlement that came through, I think it's going to become a nightmare also
Right.
because it's going to put agents in a position to have to do a dual agency. And I can just tell you right now, I don't want any part of that. And so,
I was thinking that it was gonna just be status quo for a while. Is it already making waves?
yeah, and we're talking about I'm thinking mid-August. There's all sorts of new
Also, like
paperwork we're gonna have to
soon.
do. But
Wow.
I personally think it's a paper shuffle because
Right.
our contracts, as you know, the front page says, okay, it's 5.5, 6%, whatever it is.
Right.
Right on the same page, you go down, and it's one of the few places you can add anything because you
Right.
can't touch the contract otherwise. It says the other side's getting 2.5, whatever it is. It
Right.
says it, and
Right.
like even with you would say, hey Scott, so what's the other side getting?
Right.
2.5. So do you think that we need to give them that much? My answer is yes. That's your best investment you can make on your
Right.
property. Otherwise, you basically have an off-market property.
Well, yeah, because who's gonna have the incentive to, they won't have the incentive to bring
Right.
in the buyers. I get it. I understand. Hopefully, everyone else will, because sometimes people don't. They're very, they're short-sighted. They don't get it. They don't
Right.
understand. They'll just be like, "Well, I don't want to."
Yeah, I'm talking. We're trying to figure out how to handle certain things like that because I don't want to do dual agency. It's against
Right.
our team policy. Legally, I can, but no
Right.
matter how honest, ethical, kind, trustworthy, whatever I am, it's be so hard. Like let's say I was representing the buyer on our property, the
Right.
one that we did together. I mean, it
Right.
would be. It's too difficult, and so
Because you
yeah,
can't honestly advise. I mean, you can, but just not the kind of candid conversations that we had. I hear you. I get it. Same thing.
hmm
Sometimes I get two partners that want me to represent them both in a deal, and sometimes I do, but I will be upfront with them and I'll say, look, I can never advise one of you without the other present, and like
right,
I just basically have to be neutral and make sure everything is fair. And
yeah.
if you're okay with that, then that's how we're going to do it. But I understand your challenge.
But you know what? The example would be again on the property we sold together was when we had given them all the disclosure, et cetera, et cetera. So they weren't going to ask for much, but there were things they found,
Right.
and when they didn't ask for them, I was like,
Right, you would have had to go to them and be like, "Why aren't you asking about that?" If you
oh,
were at that
I
level,
mean, I'm talking. I would have advised if I represented the buyer on that, I
right,
would have been advising them to ask for a lot more.
right, right,
And but it's the part of the dance because I didn't represent the other side
right,
was from the day number one. You're dancing with the other agent and
right,
you're negotiating. And so by the time it came around, they knew where we were coming from. They knew how much we disclosed. There's conversations going on. So when they made the ask, I remember going to you guys and saying like, sign this right away. Sign this. This is so fair. And let's get rid of that contingency. And they did. So I was so happy about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good. Very
I
good.
can't take all the credit. All I'm saying, though, in this particular case, it happened to be that
Right,
if I represent the other side, yeah, I would have said,
would have been challenging.
I would have said, why are you only asking for that? And then would I get sued? Let's say I didn't ask for that. And then the buyer could come back and say, you never asked for it. You represented the seller. You see, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the same thing with my example of dual agency, just the one that I gave you.
Right. Well, you know what it's going to be good for? The liquor industry. So,
Right.
because we're just, I'm so
Yeah,
stressed
that's
out.
true. That is true.
That's right. I love talking to you. I really do because I feel it's always interesting. I love talking to interesting people who are really really smart. So this kind of stuff makes me this is really great. Another I would like to ask before we go on before we wrap up, is there any type of charity or cause you'd like to shine a light on? Because we know you're more than just an attorney. And you're a mom. You're a wife. You're also philanthropic in nature. So what is the cause or charity that you really like to support?
Yeah, so, I feel very strongly about everything that's been happening in Israel over the last, gosh, how long has it been? Must have been a year almost. So if there's any charity that I would want to bring to the forefront, I think it would be the IFDF, IFDF.com, and it's a charitable organization that helps Israeli soldiers.
I love it. That's great.